don't think like 80-90% of us have idea what we want to be. Uh, the creative side of architecture did fascinate me, but I think none of us, and I can say about everybody who's an architect right now, unless your family has a history of people in architecture on the field of construction, know what architecture is about. So it was actually by chance, only got into architecture. So that was my only option. So I joined SPA as the only option I had after class, even after dropping a year after class 12. So finally that was a desperate move. So I did join architecture just by chance. Again, I think it was not really thought of properly, like joining architecture. Um, it was Madhav and I. We were just happy, excited to work together, and it was actually basically started off. Basically, the foundation of the practice is based on trust and friendship. I think that's what. It's not based on anything else, and it's based on the basic premise that both of us like to explore, design, do interesting stuff. I think, and that's what sort of clicked, and we realized that we work together well. We do fight and everything, but we still work together well, and it was just, it was, we thought we were too cool, and we realized, we thought that we could really earn more than what we will ever earn working with somebody, which was not true. But that's so. It just started by. It was just like, and I think that kind of. I would say the attitude still remains that you jump in the deep end and then learn how to swim, and that's what we did. I think we jumped in. We didn't know what architecture was about, and obviously, anybody who studies in architecture and then starts working realizes that it's a different world. In an office and what you are taught and the way you are taught. In a lot of ways, it's okay also. I feel that your academics should be taught in a certain way, and but there is a huge gap. And what you think of yourself, even if you're the best student of the college, once you come out, you are the worst because you have no idea, and people don't treat you with any amount of respect. So. And when you're in fifth year and you're the cool senior, everybody looks up to you, and then once you are out, you're again looked down by even the basic mason because you don't know anything actually. You have no idea how a building is made. You have no idea how things are done, and that's what happened with us. But I think we learned. We learned by doing, and that's what architecture is about. Architecture is about learning by doing. It's not. It's a doing profession. It's not a. It's not a it's a profession where you have to be out there. So yeah, so we started because we thought that's the best thing we could do, and it was like a courageous decision at that point of time, and I think it was, in hindsight, it was good. At that point of time, it was very bad. We didn't earn money for good what, but we barely survived for almost 7-8 years of our earlier years. We barely survive now also, but we've always been very, very flexible in our approach, and we always sort of firmly believed, and we still believe that there is always a way, and the basic positivity is, see, and I tell this to everybody that because you are an architect or you are in a creative profession, by default you have to be an optimist. You cannot be a pessimist because you have to create something out of nothing, right? You are creating some things which were not there. So you are adding to something, you have to be optimist. So as a base level, first trait of a creative person has to be optimistic. You cannot be pessimistic because you are creating something. The act of creation will come out of only optimism. So basically we were optimists. We are. So in the worst case scenario also we will find something which will sort of make us feel happy. And I think the motivating factor was that we were learning so much. Even we are not earning, but we were learning at that point of time. And by masons, by carpenters, those were our teachers actually. Because you got laughed at on site, but you as in we took it seriously. That okay, we need to learn from. We didn't sort of go back and decided that somebody's laughing at us and then we should, we got influenced, somehow we got influenced positively by all the criticism. Uh, so I think that's what kept us going primarily. And luckily for us, again, our basic sort of fundamentals were that we want to learn, we want to do sort of, so if that fundamental is there, you will always find something you are getting out of it. And till the time you're getting something out of your work, you will then still keep motivating you.
In architecture?
No, it has to see the technology. If architecture changes with technology, it always has. What we see as in it has a very very strong connection of with technology, because society changes with technologies, and so will architecture. I think we are only seeing the beginning of that change at this stage. It's just a very small shift right now, and that shift is there now. And I think it is going to lead to something much bigger eventually. We are at the beginning of that change. We are not at it is just about starting that change. I think there are a lot of positives obviously from this. A lot of things have become easier. We've realized that remote work is possible, and for us as an office, first set of lockdown was a difficult thing to grapple with, but the second set of lockdowns, I think in terms of an office as an entity, one, you were used to it, you were familiar with the technology back in 1 year, and the problems which we faced last time, this time was more smoother. The entire sort of shift to the technology, the clients and everybody was more aware of the technology, everybody was used to it. So I think in terms of very simple things like meetings, sites, all of that becomes easier. You don't have to travel unnecessarily. A lot of times physical presence may or may not be required, and I think with the technology that advantage is there. But so yeah, there are obviously, it's limiting, but it also has roots to something new. Again, the problem remains with architecture is that you are talking about a physical entity and physical world. So for other professions, it could also be much more liberating and much more changing. But for architecture, it will have a certain effect in the way we conduct ourselves, in the way office conducts ourselves, in the kind of spaces which is required for an office. But finally, like pure architecture as happens on site will remain. The communication part of the architecture will have certain ease and certain technological this thing, but I think the physical construction of it, until as the 3D printing really becomes this thing, that will actually then make architects almost redundant as well eventually. So that's also possible. As in terms of even the projects or the clients, it's not really affected so much. Like if you're doing a hospitality project, nothing much has changed in the brief of the client. It's still going to remain similar, except like a sanitizer everywhere kind of scenario. So it's right now it hasn't affected. In terms of a process of design, again, I don't think that it has affected as yet. Though I think it's going. Sometimes I feel that discussions can be more focused. I see it as an advantage, because then when you're talking one-on-one on a screen, you're not sort of in that sense. You're discussing more focused, but it also has this limiting factor because of a lot of times what you can make people understand physically and it's very difficult. Uh, the communication is not an easy thing to understand. When a new communication technology happens, it'll take some time for us to sort of be completely attuned uh, with that sort of sensibility. Obviously, it'll have its long-term negatives or positives. It will change how important the entire body language was, is not there, right? We're only talking to people, we're only talking to faces, we're not talking to human beings right now, which is a strange thing. You know, a lot of times when I'm talking to you, I know, your body language, your response to what I'm saying is very different, and I can gauge it. It's very difficult to gauge it on a screen. So those kind of things are something which is it's mostly a communication. It's actually right now only restricted to the communication of the ideas and the communication only, and that's the only thing we are tackling right now. I don't think it has affected the space design as yet. It could eventually, depending on what happens in next 1 year.
Yeah, so that
I personally actually I'm a present person. I'm not a past or a future person at all. I forget what has happened to me in the past and I don't think about future. But that's me, and it's a very personal trait. So I live in present and I think about present and I work towards that. Primarily that. But if I look back, it's, I guess, old age kicking in. So it's from that point of view when I look at how how we understood architecture was when we were growing up as architects. We're still growing up as architects because we're still young in terms of architecture field. But like how when we were doing like studying architecture to then when we started office, I think as a field we understood as a community the architecture to be a more physically involved field. The problem which I find now, and both in terms of the clients and the architects, who are the younger generation, I would say, of the architects, is that it's become very only visual medium, which it's not at all visual medium. The visual part of is only an aspect of architecture. It's an important aspect, but it's only one aspect of many in architecture. And I think the problem with the new, and it's a good thing and a bad thing that the clients now are more aware because of Instagram and because of technology. They have seen more, they have traveled more also now. Past 20 years or 25 years, people from India have really traveled abroad because they're earning better, so people are traveling better. But I think the issue again is that there is an awareness that what is trend, or because you're flooded with, and the problem is that with Insta and all of these things, that whatever feed you like, you're flooded with the same feed. So you feel that the world is only that feed, and you feel that that's the trend, but that's the trend which you like, and that's the trend which you'll keep seeing because that's what they want you to see. So you are in your own world, and you really don't understand what it's about. So the finer understanding, a lot of times this awareness of the client is detrimental to the architecture itself because they feel that that's what it is, but it's much more deeper. But the problem again is from the architect side. That is what you are becoming to understand because of this visual world, because this for 2 years, past 2 years, even I think because of this Instagram, Facebook technology thing, you are not as an architect also understanding the scale, the plan, the spaces, but just the 2D images, and that's what you're trying to create eventually. What you see, and the problem again is that how we are even communicating in terms of our magazines and other communication is only and only visual. We are not, there is in India, architecture there's never been a good critique, or we are never critiquing architecture in terms of materiality, in terms of space, in terms of light, in terms of energy. These are the bigger and larger issues of architecture, and visual is just one part. It has to look good, but it has to feel good. It has to feel. It's more about the feeling, and visual is just one part of it. And the problem with all of this is that it's just becoming this two-dimensional image which we are trying to create. That is what the market wants, and that is what the architects are eventually giving. And that's the problem. And because the way that I've been teaching in SPA and in a couple of colleges, and that's the kind of, even as a student's response is more and more becoming that, very influenced by those images and not see, there is, when you had to go to a library, open a book, search for some things, you were reading about that thing, you were reading about that architecture, and you were reading an international publication where they were discussing the spaces, the material, why that material, the detail, how to get it done. Now nobody is doing that. You're just thinking of this multiple images which is flashed, and you're just trying to repeat those without understanding whether it needs to be repeated or not. So I think that's where I feel where it is going presently as we speak, but part of a change, eventual change of how we look at, it will eventually look at architecture. It will, I think, I feel more and more people will get aware, and more will start coming out of the architect and onto the end user eventually. Yeah. I think 50 years down the line, eventually that might happen. An architect will have to be, has to really prove their worth now. It's not going to be a default. This thing, they will have to really prove that an architect is required. It's so like that. So if you already get X number of plans, AI is going to generate number of plans for you, and then a 3D printer company will come and just, you can just log in, put your plan, and it'll get printed. You don't need anybody. So architects will be part of that AI, but that's about it.
Yeah. So what is one maybe piece of advice you'd give to your students or somebody entering the field, or even in the field, who has to sort of create their own identity and not become just another one of those images you see on Instagram or on your feed? Like,
see, I think the baseline of this is being honest to yourself, and honest to the design, and honest to the profession. I think somewhere down the line, again, the problem is that everybody seems to be in a hurry to be successful. And I don't think there is a shortcut to success. So because of, again, it's the society, it's because of the startups, because of money being poured into startup, people realize that a 30-year-old can make crores of money, or 25-year-old is now, head of OYO, and he's like a billionaire. And the aspiration, and obviously it's an innovative thing that person did, right? It's not something, it was a brilliant idea what they had, and it was an innovative thing. But out of those 1 million people, there was one, 23-year-old billionaire who made Facebook, whatever, again, the idea is not that image of 23. The idea is that their conviction and their honesty towards their approach is what one needs to look at, and not the end product. It's like this: the image is the end product of probably a lot of hard work and everything which created that. But one needs to understand the process. How do you get, when you look at masters of, like when you're students and when you're studying buildings, and that's how you learn, right? You go to a place, you understand a building. What do you understand with it? You have to understand the process the architect went through to create this building. And once you understand the process, then you have to find what you want to find from that process, not from the end product. If you understand that process, your end product could be different, because your ingredients will change, your client will change, your climate will change, your personality will come in. And 10th, a different iteration or something else will come up. If you understand the process, but if you if you don't understand the process, look at the image, then you will be only repeating without understanding, and then it doesn't have a life, right? So I think we should not be in a hurry, and we should be very, very honest towards our approach, our work, ourselves primarily. So I think, and that was what, as in our bottom line is that, as in how we work. It's every time, even when you're doing your 100th house, you have to sort of be honest towards your client that you are giving him something which is meant for that person, and not something which you thought about earlier. It has to be a purer, honest approach.
Yeah.
I think if that is there, and as in we've always done that, and luckily we've been okay with it. So, and I feel that that's the only, because that's my sort of process.
And it's not just doing like a specific type, it's not just interiors or anything. There's interiors, there's urban, there's art. Do you think this honesty and this being true to yourself is what helps you maintain a sort of uniqueness and identity while crossing over these fields? Like,
Absolutely, I think that's what I think the inquisitiveness is very, very important. You know, as any creative person, architect, whosoever, I think unless you don't have the thirst to learn more and find out more and explore more, there would be a stagnation. And for us, the reason why we don't have a specific style, or we don't this thing, because how can you have a style when you are always exploring, right? We are always trying to figure out newer, different ways to look at things, because that's what excites us, and that's what sort of kept us going for last 20 years. And I think, and it still motivates us. You know, still, even if I have to design a chair, I still want to figure out something innovative in the way we. So the thing is, again, the idea is to find innovation in the approach itself, in the process itself. We never ever actually ever think of the end product in our design. We are not driven by an image, we are mostly driven by the process. And end product is a byproduct of that process. It's not, we don't start from the end, and then a lot of times there's so much, like if you, in the office, there's so much of iteration and so much of change in design, and because we are constantly critiquing ourselves, constantly looking at what we've done wrong and how we can do it right. And yeah, and then you need to be comfortable with your own honesty. You know, a lot of times you're not. So